أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وارزقنا فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين اللهم افتح إلينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الكرام ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to everyone. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, I can see some familiar faces and I can see some new names and faces as well. So welcome to everyone. And I hope inshallah this turnout will remain consistent throughout the rest of the course. Typically it happens that we start off with like 100 people and then we end up finishing with maybe 3 people. So I hope people don't drop out along the way. It may seem like there is a drag at some point, or some topics we may cover in some of the sessions might feel a bit not easy to grasp. You know, every student goes through like a plateau of learning. There's that initial hike when you get interesting topics, and then you sort of plateau and then people start dropping off. So this happens during any study program. And inshallah, the course has been titled in a very elaborate way. I left that to Saif because he has a knack for these kind of things. He always gets the most amazing titles, which is the search for, what was it again, Saif? The search for sapiens. Am I getting it right? Spiritual sapiens, yes. Triple S. So this is the course title. But what we will be looking at, inshallah, are 2 key subjects. Well, one of them is a subject of study. The other is going to be a text that we'll be following. So we'll be studying this more. We'll be studying logic, but we will be studying it from a psychological perspective. And the other text will be more towards some wisdoms, some aphorisms, and we'll be following a text by a different scholar on that. So alhamdulillah, it's been a while since we all interacted, and a lot of things have happened during this interim. So I mean, a lot of things have happened, and it's interesting because every moment in time in our world is always a moment of occurrence. Some things happen and they demand, immediate attention, or they stir up an immediate reaction, an emotional reaction. And some things are so dominant or are so recurring in the sense that when they happen, they don't really prompt any cause for any want of investigation or any such thing. But if we look at like what's happened in the last 12 weeks, it's caused up a lot of stirrings around the world, and there are many factors that partake in that stirring. In reality, it's not a new thing that's happened. It's been happening for the last 70 years, and it's been happening long before that as well, in a much lesser scale than it has been happening now. One of the things that has actually aggravated the reaction and then the acceleration of events, because when we look at how the events are transpiring, it's almost as if they're happening almost every hour. There's something monumental that is taking place. It's one of the things that prompts these kind of things is the ease and the mannerism in which information is exchanged. So you know how we say ignorance is bliss, or what you don't know will not hurt you, meaning if you don't get the information, then you don't know of what's transpiring. And if you don't know what's transpiring, then automatically you don't react to what you don't know. So you're oblivious to it. And in one sense, it's a good thing. In another sense, it is a bad thing. With this ease of communication, the rapidity with which news and information is exchanged, whether or not there is validity to news and that information, or it is just fabricated, and a lot of it seems like there has been a lot of fabrication in there, a lot of propaganda being stirred up to prompt the reactions of the people en masse, not just the individual, but en masse. Human nature is such that we tend to react whenever a fitna takes place. That's something that's been established as an axiom of human nature. Whenever there is anything that happens, we always tend to react to the fitna. It's something that is almost unavoidable. And that's the moment in which a reaction is least favorable. It's the moment in which you're not supposed to react, or you shouldn't react, whether positively or negatively. It's a difficult thing to accomplish for even for the population at large, and even for the individual who is encountering individual circumstances in their life. It's a difficult thing. Sometimes a reaction is warranted and sometimes it is not. The evaluation of that takes precedence before the reaction. And those who were there in the previous course, we talked about the composition, the psychological composition of the human being. The mind, which is a composite of three particular, what happened to the lights? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Three composite faculties, which are the aql, which is the intellect, the shahwa, which is the concupiscence or your appetites, and then the ghadab, which is the emotions. And these three components, they play a role in the decision making of the individual. So you've got your rational faculty, you got your appetitive faculty, and then you got your emotive or your emotional faculty. And all three have some dynamic role when you're making a decision. And so the decision to act or not to act when information is received, or how to act, which way to act, what is prompted from you, these are based on the internal configuration between these faculties. This is what we call the mind now. See, so the mind or the soul, which is now in terms of its synonymic terms, the soul, these are the three components. So what transpires internally insofar as the decision making is concerned is what will now determine the outcome of the reaction taking place based on what has prompted that reaction. How you react is what's going to determine now what outcome is going to ensue after that. Whether or not the fitna will be aggravated or it will be pacified. You see? And the positive or the favorable outcome is incumbent upon which one of these faculties internally is allowed dominance over the other two. Because you can't have three kings on the same throne. You have to only have one. You can only have one decision maker. And then the other two become advisors to that decision maker. And the study that we went through, we concluded by saying that the sound functionality for the human being, ahwal an-nas, sound psychological states, are only established when you have the intellect at a higher position than the concupiscence and the irascible. Meaning your rational faculty is making the final decision, though it may take into account what the emotion is or what the desire is. The desire to act and to do something, and the emotion that is prompted from that. So when you see these atrocities taking place, there is a righteous anger which is justified as an emotion that needs to take place. But the anger itself cannot override the decision, the final decision. The final decision has to be rational. So how do you cultivate that now? How do you give your intellect the right tools by which rationality can prevail, whereby the opinions of your desires are taken into account and the opinions of your emotions are also taken into account, in that you do not suppress yourself or deprive yourself internally, which may then put you into a different psychological state, but whereby you're able to now make a rational, more informed decision. Because if you look at what's been transpiring over the last 12 weeks and how, in particular, Muslims have been behaving, not Muslims insofar as those who are caught in the core of the atrocity, those who are actually suffering from the atrocity directly, but those who are indirectly associated with it. You see your brothers and your sisters, and you see all these children, you see all these people being oppressed and being persecuted. There is a righteous anger that must arise from that. But how should that anger be cultivated in that when you now make the decision to react to the fitna, it does not aggravate the fitna, it helps pacify the fitna. So that a solution now, a resolution can come out from that. You're not going to get a resolution from that if you start going out in the streets holding up signs that say free, free Palestine. That's not going to give you a resolution. We've been doing that for I don't know how many decades now. What's happened? Nothing has happened. It's not brought the fitna down. It just keeps on aggravating it. Steadily over the years, it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's not helping matters. You're not going to get resolution if you're going to go up on all these talk shows and open your YouTube channels and your Instagram, TikTok videos and all these things where you just start throwing out hatred and you start throwing out all these nonsensical slogans. That does not give you a resolution. That is a reaction that is based purely on your ghadab making the decision for you, paired by the desire to act. You want to act, you want to do something. And this is why you see in your community, whenever there is a fitna, it's not the intellectuals who start rising up. It's always the ignoramus who start jumping up and down. The WhatsApp messages, the phone goes ding, 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 ding when the fitna starts. Those WhatsApp messages are not coming from intellectuals. They're coming from the ignoramus. Sign this petition, call this other person, let's set up a committee, let's do this, let's do that. These are the kind of individuals who start coming up. These are the people who are reacting. These are the majority of the Muslims now. I'm sorry to say, but it's true. It's factual. Because look around you as far as what's been transpiring over to. I'll give you one simple example. I'll give you the example of political parties, okay, who are largely perceived as, okay, these are intellectuals. You see, these are our leaders. I'll give you the example of something like Hizb ut-Tahrir. This is the occasion that, these are the kind of occasions that really give them the fuel when the slogans start coming up. It gives them the ammunition now to start campaigning for the liberation of Al-Aqsa or the establishment of the Khilafah or whatever else. I saw on my Facebook a post came up. Very elaborate poster was made, big, huge piece was made, was being shared among all the Hizb ut-Tahrir foot soldiers, I call them. They think they're on the higher hierarchies of this party, but they're foot soldiers. These are people who are just hooked in with a few, PDFs that they publish, and then they get them to start working, establish the Khilafah. You see, if we had established the Khilafah, none of this would have happened. You see? These are the kind of people who... So they start putting up this poster now. And the poster read, 10 steps to the liberation of the Palestinian people. Implementing 10 steps, and they've listed 10 steps. And first we do this, first we do that, then we do that, then we do this, then we do that. Any intellectual who looks at that has to laugh, because that's what I did. I laughed. I had to laugh. I said, this is absolutely ridiculous, a complete absurdity. This is the level that you have descended to, where you now have to employ what they call in social media marketing niche terms or niche, what are they called? I don't know what they're called. The 10 best ways to achieve good health, or 10 steps to achieve financial freedom. Or these are the kind of slogans now you have to resort to provide a solution for the ummah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you think that people like Umar ibn al-Khattab will stand and give you, hip hip hurrah for your efforts? Like where have you descended yourselves to? How low have you brought yourselves down to? Why? Because you did not stop to think first and foremost and to understand what is happening first of all, and then what is really happening on top of that. It's easy to determine what is happening. We can get the news and the facts and all these pieces around us. It's easy to determine he hit this one and that one hit this one and he threw a rock and that one threw a rocket. Like that, we know that. Those are facts. It's a domain of political facts. We can get that. But what's really happening? What's really happening is a creation of mass confusion. We are in an age of fitan. This is the dominant premise of this age. It is an age of mass confusion. And everywhere you look, every individual who is either debating or arguing or making their posts or making their conspiracy memes, with the image of that man with one eye is white and the other eye is, I don't know, something else. And then there is a kafara on his forehead. And then on the side corner, there is a picture of Bill Gates holding a syringe. And then down there is something else. And then over there, there's a pyramid. That guy as well. This is what people are doing, you see, in the hopes of saying what? Oh, we are defending the deen. See, we are exposing the Antichrist. See, we are making people aware. You see? Whereas when you look at their arguments, what they're saying, there is absolutely no rationality to those arguments. They don't know the terms they're using. They don't know the definitions of those terms. They don't know how to build their syllogisms. They don't know how to connect the dots. They don't know how to present their arguments. They don't know any of that. It is not an intellectual motion that they are making. There's no intellectual aspect to it. It is just reacting out of a sense of reaction. Because I need to do something. I feel like I have to do something. These same caricatures of Hizb ut-Tahrir with their political slogans and everything. Where are they? Where are they? Do you see any of them in Gaza? Do you see any of them at the border? Do you see any of them lifting a blanket to cover a fellow Palestinian brother? Do you see any of them holding any of the children and treating their wounds? Where are they? They're coming to liberate Islam. When the earthquake took place over here in Turkey, where were they? They put up a post on their Facebook and said, oh, we stand in solidarity and we condemn those who did not do the services in time. And the last portion of their statement, if we had established Khilafah, then we would be in a better position. As though establishment of Khilafah would have stopped the earthquake from taking place. Or establishment of Khilafah will put the Jews in their place, they will not do what they're doing. The Zionists will be scared of you because you now have Khilafah. This is, you're either on this extreme or you're on the complete other extreme of stupidity. You have got no balance insofar as your sound rationality is concerned. And I'm talking about en masse, the entire Muslim population, the entire ummah. We're caught in slogans. And slogans are part of rhetoric. It's part of the pathos of rhetoric. It's just persuasion to and appeal to emotion. Though the rhetoric is there in the articulation, but there is no ethos. There is nothing insofar as you showing or demonstrating exactly how it is that we have arrived at this position. What is the issue? What are we dealing with? Because they can't even break down the basic fundamental terms. I'll give you another example. If you look at the most commonly applied phrase in the media, it's always Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And everybody's using that. Has anybody ever stopped to think what that phrase means? What does it mean? What is the meaning of conflict in this aspect? What does the term conflict mean? Because in Arabic, there are so many terms that could be used in the place of conflict. Is it ikhtisam? Is it tadarub? Is it tanazu'? And there's a difference. There's tanazu' and then there is munaza'a, and they're different terms, though they are from the same root. Is it khilaf or is it ikhtilaf? And those are also different terms. Is it tanaqud? What is it? What is the meaning of conflict in that statement, in that phrase? Nobody wants to think about and figure that out. And then you've got Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli, which Israeli? Are we dealing with nation states? Are we dealing with ethnical people? Are we dealing with the theological conflict? Is it a racial conflict, Jews and Arabs? And what about Jews and Arabs? not all Jews are Semitic of origin, so it's not really ethnical or racial in that sense. You've got European Jews mixed in there. Or is it Hebrew and Arab? What exactly is it? Nobody wants to look at what it really is, but wants to go out and start debating about it. Everyone has an opinion. You see, nowadays we live in a world whereby everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to say. You see, kullu dibbin wa hibbin yatakallam. Every creeping, crawling thing wants to stand up and speak. This is what I think. Nobody wants to look at the foundation. Nobody wants to look at the premises. Nobody wants to try and rectify the core issue. Why are we in a dire, dismal state? Why? It has been prophesied by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said it. He said, it's not about the numbers that you will be having. You see, they had this million man march, million person, whatever, in Toronto, in Ottawa. What happened? Where did your million people go? Did it fix anything? You were all out there on the street, free Palestine, free Palestine. What happened? Did it fix anything? The leaders whom you are going to go out to the polls to now start voting and deciding who it is you're going to elect, liberal or conservative, this character or that character, you want Ya'juj or you want Ma'juj, it doesn't matter, you're going to have to choose one of those. What happened? Did they listen to you? What's happening? Today only, still today, there's still rockets being fired, there's still bombings taking place. It didn't stop anything. It didn't rectify anything. These people are on a completely different level. You're playing checkers. These people are playing chess. You're on a completely different playing field. They don't give two rats. Let me not use the word. They don't give a damn what you think or what your opinion is or how many people you are or what nationalities you are from or whether you have oil or you don't have, or so you're going to boycott oil. Boycott is another thing now, all these people. We have to boycott this one, boycott that one, boycott this one, boycott that one. You think they care if you're not going to drink Starbucks? You think they care if you're not going to buy a Big Mac? You think they want your money, your $10 and your $2 and your $3 and your how many rupees? You think they want all that? These people are on a completely different level. Because they do not fear you, not in terms of your numbers, not your quantity. They don't fear your quality. We'll look at these terms, inshallah, when we do the study of logic. You'll understand why I'm saying all this. You'll understand because all these terms are there in the science of logic. They don't fear your numbers. The Prophet ﷺ said, he said, Bal antum kathirun yawma idin. On that day, you're going to be many in numbers. You're going to be ridiculously many in numbers. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ غُثَاءٌ كَغُثَاءِ السَّيْلِ. You're going to be like the froth of, torrential water. You see, when you look at the rapids in a river flowing, there's this froth that gets kicked up, the bubbles. He's saying you're going to be like this. Or the froth when the waves crash onto the shoreline, on the beach. You're going to be like that. That's what you are. Without substance, without anything, hollow, empty, useless individuals, useless people. Completely pathetic. That's what you're going to be, regardless of how many numbers you are. This is the real. What you see exhibiting is a verification. It is a clear daleel of the Prophet ﷺ, that when you see that, the only thing you can say is Sadaqa Rasulullah. He spoke the truth. Look at our state. Look at our state today. There's no stopping these people. There's no stopping. They are going to take over the entire strip. You think they're going to sit back just because the UN voted to ceasefire? What ceasefire? What is the meaning of ceasefire? Ask them, they will tell you the meaning of ceasefire. They're calling it humanitarian pause. What is a humanitarian pause? Let's take a break. Give these people food, then we can keep on bombing them. That's what it means. That's what a humanitarian pause means. Stop 1 second, give them Band-Aid, they got cut, that one needs a drink. Give this one falafel, shawarma here, let them eat, have lunch, then we can go back to bombing them. That's what humanitarian pause means. And Muslims clapping, you see, it worked. We were doing free Palestine, it worked now. You see, they're going to stop them. They're not going to stop. They'll take a break, maybe 2-3 weeks, they'll stop. And then they'll find a different way to get back onto track. Because they are driven by a theological doctrine that they have manufactured for themselves, that they have fabricated for themselves. They are playing on a completely different level, while we are playing checkers on the ground. Because we don't want to fix ourselves. You see, we are seeing the problem is somebody else. You see, the problem is the Jews. The problem is the Zionists. The problem is those people. The problem is Donald Trump. If we can just get rid of him, everything will be fine. The problem is Erdogan, you see. If we can just, he's saying this on this, and then he's done that, and then he's shaking hands over here and he's doing that, he's a kafir. If we can just get rid of that guy. The problem is these people, it's not us. Nobody wants to fix themselves. Fix yourselves first. As Muslims, bring yourselves up to a level of integrity, because you've been crippled. A dark conspiracy has taken place against you, and it has taken place over a very long time, because these people have been playing a long con. They have crippled you intellectually and spiritually, that you may never rise again. These were the words of Lord Curzon when he addressed the British House of Lords in 1924. He said, now that we have destroyed the caliphate by removing Islam from the picture, we must ensure that the Muslims must never rise again, spiritually or intellectually. What does that mean, spiritually or intellectually? Is he talking about your high school grades? Is he talking about the degree you're going to get in university? What is he talking about? He's talking about your aql and your shahwa and your ghadab and your qalb. Though they may not be using the exact same words, they know exactly what they are referring to. Because it's part of their teachings. They have to learn this. They know more about your religion and your theology than you know about yourself. They know more about the prophecies made by Rasulullah than you know. They may have drawn their own interpretives from that, but they know more about them than you do. They have studied all these sciences, including the one we'll be studying today. If you want to look for historical individuals who actually stood up against them and gained traction, look for those individuals who have studied these things as well. Look for individuals like Malcolm X, or Martin Luther King, or Mahatma Gandhi, or Muhammad Iqbal. Look for these kind of individuals. And you will find in their forte of what they have, insofar as their ammunition, they have these kind of sciences backing them up. Logic, rhetoric, grammar. Look at how eloquent their speech was. Look at how they were able to defeat them in argumentation. They didn't even have to go out into the street to do it, to start causing war against them. They could defeat them in their speech. But here we are with Free Palestine posters and the flag. What does the flag do? What's the flag going to do? Let me ask anybody who wants to come in and challenge whatever I'm saying. Do you envision a future whereby you're going to have a Republic of Palestine? Because that's essentially what it's going to be. It will have some fancy name to it, maybe. The Islamic Republic of Palestine. Do you see a parliament of Palestine? Do you see a president in place? Do you see their own White House? Do you see them having their own government? Is that a possibility that you can envision? Because we are living in a world of necessities, necessaries, possibilities, and impossibilities. These are three parts. We'll look at these as well in logic. Do you see that actually transpiring? And if you do, how exactly do you see it transpiring? How exactly do you envision this to take place? Are the Zionists going to sit back and let you achieve that? Or maybe they're going to partake and help you rebuild that? Do you think that these Zionists, after they have leveled Gaza completely, from the northern border to the southern, from the eastern and western, the entire strip, after they have leveled it completely, do you think that they are going to now bring in their trucks and their stone and their cement and everything and help the Palestinians build a state of their own there? Do you think they're going to do that? So what does free Palestine mean? What does it mean? Nobody can define that statement. Free what? ما معنى الحرية? The Arabs used to say الحر عبد ما قنع والعبد حر ما تمع أو كما قال. The free man is a slave so long as he is greedy. And the slave is free so long as he is not covetous. That is the essential meaning of freedom. How do you think you're going to achieve freedom for those people when you yourselves are trapped by your lifestyles back in North America and in Europe? You can't let go of that mansion, that 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom that you have because it's increasing in value. I'm building my equity. You can't get rid of that car that you're hanging on to, or that job that is paying you so well, whereby you have to get up every day in the morning so that you can go and lick the boots of some white man who is a supporter of the Zionists, who doesn't give two cents whether or not the Muslims survive or not. You can't get rid of that lifestyle. How are you going to liberate the others? You cannot get rid of the things that you are coveting. How are you going to bring freedom to others? So what does free Palestine mean? Anyway, I went off on a rant. Somebody should have stopped me there. But, these are the kind of things that, the reason why we're even doing a course like this is not to discuss these subjects and these matters and to start looking for all the solutions and everything. It is to try and bring yourselves as Muslims back to that same level of integrity where once you were a feared people. Why? Because of your intellectual prowess, because of your ability to hold on to true and essential knowledge. This is the thing that is lacking in everybody. It is lacking because knowledge does not only pertain knowing how to recite the Quran. It doesn't mean that you know how to do Allahu Akbar. That's the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum. That's the path of salvation that you're taking. Because you can survive on the bare minimum. Yes, you just perform your fard ayn and you can move on. And you will get Jannah if it is sincere. If your intention and the action that is performed is based on sincerity, you will get your paradise. But you cannot resolve the crisis of the world and the crisis that the ummah is going through based on the bare minimum. One of my teachers always says, your dars nizam from Darul Ulum is not going to help you penetrate the reality of the world as it is today. It will not. Just because you are able to put two facts together and then speak it out, right? Like the creepy crawly thing that wants to talk, does not mean you had an insight. You need more than that. You need those kind of sciences that these same people have studied in their own versions, but you need to study what our ulama studied, what made them a formidable force. Because when you cultivate your intellectual and spiritual aspect, the physical aspect of your existence is a matter of logistics. Really, it's a matter of logistics. And this is what the Sahaba were asking with regards to that hadith, in that hadith. When the Prophet ﷺ said, they're going to consume you like somebody consumes a plate of food. And they asked a very sincere question. Is it because we're going to be few in number? Very interesting question. They're asking a logistical question. Problems with Muslims are never logistical. The logistics will always work themselves out when you resolve what is internal. The exhibition of it, the action now that you will perform, will provide you with the desired outcomes and the results, so long as the internal aspect is resolved. Psychologically, we are all suffering from an epistemological crisis internally. And this is what we want to resolve. So this is going to be what we are going to be looking at, inshallah, in the duration of this course. We're going to study logic, but we're going to try and study as much as possible, less from a technical perspective because it is a technical science, but we're going to study it more from a psychological angle to see now how do you apply this whatever you're going to learn. And then we're going to be doing the hikam of Ibn Ata'illah. We're going to look at all the aphorisms and the wisdoms that he has given there. And I want to pair these two together to show you that though you may have logic, the knowledge you have it's not going to help you unless you know how to implement that knowledge. And the howness of implementing knowledge is reliant on wisdom. And so this is why we want to look at the wisdoms that Ibn Ata'illah is going to give us. So that at the end of this course, inshallah, you have cultivated within you a sense of higher intellectual capacity and capability, because one of the things that logic does, well, there are many things actually, we'll look at that as well, is it increases the ability to comprehend things. So that when there's an incident that is taking place around you, your first instance is to comprehend it properly so that you can then know what to do. If you don't comprehend it in its fullness, then whatever you do is going to be hit and miss. And 99% of the chance is going to be miss. The 1% might be a hit. It's a gamble you are taking. You don't want to take a gamble with such things, with life itself. The second thing it does is it increases the power of comprehension itself. Not just the ability to comprehend, but it increases the capacity to comprehend so that it allows you now to grasp other things. Logic is a fundamental science. There are higher sciences more than that. You see, and you need to understand all those sciences as well to rise up the levels, to rise up the ranks. So you need to improve the power of comprehension as well. Now, the texts, I actually shared them very late. I shared them earlier this afternoon. So Saif is going to, there are two Saifs, by the way, so you don't get confused. One is Saifullah, the other one is Saifur Rahman. And Saifur Rahman is going to take care of the Zoom session and all matters that are related to the group, the communication, any text, any back and forth, and all that. He's going to take care of all of that. So I think he has already posted the books that we'll be looking at in PDF form. Now, it's important, these two texts that you've been provided, I think there are three texts actually, the three texts, yeah. These are only class specific, so please do not share this outside the classroom. The one text is titled An Introduction to Logic. This was a course that was taught by Hamza Yusuf in 2013-14, I don't remember, here in Turkey, in Konya. I think it's an excellent text. It's the same matan of Athiruddin al-Abhari that we will be studying. The matan is titled Isaguji. The Isaguji is a translation of a text by the same name titled Isagoji by Porphyry. And what Porphyry did was he sort of summarized the 6 books of Aristotle, what are known as the Organon. He summarized that into a simpler text called the Isagoji, and then Imam Athiruddin translated it into Arabic. So you'll find many of the terms in there are Arabic terms. Actually, all the terms are Arabic terms. And this text that Sheikh Hamza has compiled is excellent because he's put in there the 10 principles, Mabadi Ashra of the science of logic. He's given an explanation. He's put in translation of each of those sections. And then he's also put down footnotes to provide further explanations. Though I found that the footnotes were a bit advanced for those who have never studied logic. And I think the class he was teaching at that time was a little bit more advanced. So I'll go through the footnotes as well, and we'll go step by step. Inshallah, I'll explain everything in detail, and we'll try and finish the entire course, the entire text by the end of our course. Then the other text you have there is a logic tree that was made by a student of mine in a previous course that I taught. It's a bit outdated in its aesthetics and its design. So if anyone in the class is good at this kind of things, you know, making flow charts and all that, maybe you can make a better one based on those components in there. Something more presentable, something more ideal to the eye as well and easily comprehensible. And then share that in the group. And then the third text. So the text on logic, I have got 3 different versions. And I'm going to use Sheikh Hamza's text more, but I have other versions because this is what happens in matan, especially when people write sharh on a matan. They are reading off manuscripts that are handwritten, and that the one who is the muhaqqiq, who is going to verify the text, sometimes they insert their own version and say, no, the word doesn't mean this, it means that. Or some of the manuscripts are not written with the nuktas, or they're not written with the tashkil in them. So sometimes an educated guess has to be made. So you'll find certain terms differ. So I've got all three texts. I've got my handwritten text, and then I have got a published version. I think you can see that. I have got this. Let me show it to the other cameras as well. That one. I've got a text that has been published and has got a sharh of its own in Arabic, and I have got my own notes for when I studied logic. So I'll be using all three texts as well. And there are a lot of flowcharts which I have got. I've got flowcharts, I've got different kind of things going on, but I will not be able to share all those with you. It's consuming a lot of time to start putting them down on the computer. So I would rather that as we go through the text, you make your own flowcharts. Because flowcharts, they're very useful in terms of when you're dealing with a technical science, it's easier to trace. Here is an example of a flowchart. The lights just went off. I don't know if you can see that. There's an example of a flowchart in there. These are from my own notes back when I was studying. It would be good if you make your own designs, if you make your own flowcharts. So we'll look at all the terms and I'll explain how the terms are connected to each other, what categories they fall under, and make your own flowcharts so that it's easy for you to remember them and it's easy for you to show, okay, this links to that and this connects to that and this falls in this category. The text on Ibn Ata'illah, also I have got three texts, and one is this big sharh that was brought to me by a student of mine from Saudi when he visited just recently. So thank you very much for that, Mohsin. I don't know if he's here in the group because he went back to Saudi, but I don't know if he's here in the Zoom connection. Thank you very much for this, Mohsin. And it was his dua that I actually teach this book. So I think your dua has been accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, we'll be teaching this book. There is a text in here, and this is one of those texts which there have been so many commentaries that have been written on this. In fact, in this book, this version, the first like 20 pages is only talking about all the different commentaries that have been made by different scholars. And so there are certain variances in the terms as well. So I've got a version that I studied myself. And this is the version that I studied myself. These are my own writings and my own notes. And inshallah, what I did was I couldn't find another text online. So I had to sit down and type everything out. All 200 and some 20 something aphorisms, I typed them all out. So the PDF that you have there, please do not share it with anyone because there are likely to be mistakes in that. Whether they're mistakes in error in spelling, or a word has been missed, or a typo or something of the sort. There are mistakes in there, and as we go along through the text, I'm going to see where the mistakes have been made, and you can rectify them accordingly. And there are variances between the different sharh, so there are different words that have been used as well. Some of them have similar meanings, some of them have slightly variant meanings, so I'm going to give you both the words so you can make note of that as well. Now, as is customary in my class, those who have been in my class before know this very well. There is a fundamental axiom when you want to study in my class. Now, I'm not going to take a stick and run after you and punish you if you don't do this. This is up to you, and it's going to be on self-discipline. Whenever you study a text with me, you have to write everything down by hand. There is no kata 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 on keyboard. There's none of that in my class. You have to write everything down by hand. Even though I have given you the PDF and you've got the other PDF with translation in it, you are going to write down the original matan, the original Arabic. You're going to write that down by hand. You have to. And then you can leave some space where you will put in the translation or explanation or other kinds of notes and whatnot. You can do that. But the actual text you have to write down by hand. And then an additional step to that is any ayah or hadith that we come across, it is vital that you look it up, because I may not be able to give you a reference every single time, but this is going to be part of your own research on it. you look up the hadith, you look up the ayah, and you write that down by hand. You have to write down the ayah full, complete. Even if I quoted part of it, or even if in the text you see a partial of the ayah, write down the entire thing. This is part of your discipline of study. This is your adab. In the Islamic sciences, we've got adab. One of the sciences of language is also called adab. It's called literature. Literature is the adab of writing. It is the adab of compiling. It is the adab of organizing, of putting everything together properly. Because if you're going to study, from here and from there and PDF open here or print out over there, that does not enable you to actually grasp the essence of it. Yeah, you might be able to move information this way and that way, but the actual grasping of it has to be done in real time. Because we as human beings, we are in a state of biological existence. And biological existence means that although we are alien to this world, this material world, we are alien. We've come from a spiritual origin. So though we are alien to this, we have to abide by the rules of this realm that we occupy. So if we can abide by things like gravity and things like sleep and rest and effort and friction and all these things, we also must abide by the one component that we always overlook, and that's the component of time. Time is the one thing that we always ignore. And yet it is the very medium in which we are existent. It's like the fish. David Wallace gave his commencement speech. He started by saying, there are these two fish in the water and they're swimming. And then an older fish comes along and then asks these two fish, how's the water, boys? And then the two fish, they don't reply. They keep swimming away. And then further along the way, the one fish asks the other one, what is water? What is water? We never think about that. You're in this medium of existence. The fish doesn't think about the water. But the fish is not an intelligent being. You're an intelligent being. You should be thinking about the medium in which you're existent. And the medium in which you're existent in is time. You came into this world at a certain time. You're in motion through time. You have been given a duration of journey. And then you will depart at a certain time. And you need to be synchronous with it. The shortcut method, yes, it bridges over time, you see? When you're trying to save time. Let's not go through the long path. Let's take the shorter route. We'll save some time. True, it may work in certain scenarios which are negligible, insignificant. But the acquisition of knowledge is not an insignificant activity. It is a paramount activity. It is the only activity that will get you to a state of enlightenment. Enlightenment meaning what? Meaning that there is a nur in your heart that enables you to see reality with insight. To see reality with insight. It is the light of the heart. That's what knowledge is. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the heart itself, distinct from its bodily association and its soul and its nerves and all the extensions, the heart has got only two purposes. One is iman and the other one is ilm or ma'rifah. Ilm is more what takes you to ma'rifah, but the ultimate goal is ma'rifah. It's iman and ma'rifah. It is belief and understanding, realization. Those are the only two functions of the heart. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the jinn or mankind except but to serve me. Ibn Abbas said on that, he said, إِلَّا لِيَعْرِفُونَ. Except but to understand, to know me. And that's why Imam al-Ghazali, we did the text on that. Imam al-Ghazali said on that ayah, in Kimya Sa'ada, he said, وَمَعْنَاهَا وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْقَلْبِ إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْقَلْبِ وَجَعَلْنَا النَّفْسَ مَرْكَبَهُ حَتَّى يُسَافِرُ إِلَيْهِ مِنَ الْعَالَمِ التُّرَابِ إِلَى أَعْلَى إِلِّيِّينَ. We created the heart and we gave it the soul as its vessel so that it can journey upon it from this realm of materiality to the highest of the high. And the highest of the high is in a state of knowing the one divine unity. Everything else is particular. So, it is of the highest modus. It is not an insignificant thing. The method, the process of acquiring knowledge is not an insignificant thing. And to acquire it in its complete sense, you need to be synchronous with the reality itself. Because this is the alam. And the ilm is from the alam. You see, alam is ismu ala. It's a noun of instrumentation. It's what facilitates something. So you've got miftah, which is the key. The key is not fataha itself. The key is not fataha itself. It only facilitates the fataha. It only facilitates the opening. You see, and that's why you've got Suratul Fatiha. It is what is now opening up to you this incredible knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down that will enable you to rise up to know Him and to grow closer to His presence, because ultimately this is what your purpose in this life is. Your purpose in this life is not to figure out who the Antichrist is or when Imam Mahdi is coming. Is he here yet? Did his flight get delayed? Was he coming via this one or that one? Or he wasn't given a passport? Your job is not to determine all those things. All those things are part of this world and they stop here and they end here. What carries on forward is your heart. And that is what is going to be raised and is going to be judged. And that's what you want to ultimately prepare yourself for. In order to do that, you need to go through this mode of existence as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained. And He has ordained a certain passage of time. And He has ordained that your spiritual, your ruh, and your essential, your ethereal, your nafs, and your jism, your body, are joined together in harmony. And you are in this world of causality, of materiality that has got a certain motion of time. And so you need to be in harmony with that. So that ultimately when your thoughts are functioning in trying to understand what it is that you're reading or what you're studying, and the motion of your hand is moving with the motion of this reality, there is synchronicity that is taking place between your brain and your hand. This is what you call psychological soundness, to be in harmony with reality. This is why you write everything down by hand. The shortcut method doesn't help you. It gives you a lot of information, but that information is not processed in real time. Information will only get processed at the rate at which the brain functions. It cannot function outside of that. You can't enhance the processing of information. It has to function in real time. So though you may do a shortcut and get all the information in one go, it will still take you 10 hours to process it. So why not just use those 10 hours to do things in the right way, in the proper way, right? So you're going to have to do this. You have to write it down. I'm not going to follow up on you. Do this for yourself. It is for your own benefit. And it is going to enable you to have an understanding and fully benefit from this course. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything. You're going to hear AbuBilaal's rantings and his whatever it is that he says, and you'll get entertained. And then you will go home and, like my teacher says, you will eat biryani and go to sleep, or chicken tandoori and go to sleep. That's ultimately what you're going to get from that. So anyway, I hope inshallah everyone is going to stick to the end of the course and go through it fully. The texts have been given to you. You can start writing them down section by section. We will be doing section by section anyway, so you don't have to write everything at one go. You can pace yourself out. I know everybody has got schedules, you've got responsibilities, you've got a lot of things, other things going on, and you're not able to dedicate as much time, so that's fine. Pace yourself out steadily. Try your best not to fall behind. It's a good thing that you're able to be at least proactive in it, so that you have a little bit of preliminary reading of what's going to take place. And that will, when we're doing the session and we're doing the explanations of things, they will digest much quicker. Let us stop here, inshallah. I just heard the adhan for Maghrib for us, so we're going to stop here, maybe take a 10-minute break, and I can pray Maghrib, and then we'll resume for questions and answers. And on that note of questions and answers, just one last piece. I am notoriously known to give, really lengthy answers that keep going on and on. So there's a principle in our tradition that the one who is being questioned is at the mercy of the one who is doing the questioning. So I am really at your mercy. And if you ask a very long complex question, then the answer is going to be long and complex. But so try your best to really give a concise question, as much as concise as you can. Let's avoid getting into unnecessary discussions during the question answer session unless it's important and it's related to the subject of study. That's why we've got the Telegram group on that, so we can continue a discussion afterwards. So during the session, let's try and keep it as brief as possible so that we can finish question and answer session quickly, inshallah. Anyway, let's take a break and we'll resume after 10 minutes. Jazakumullahu khairan. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah. Okay, let's start, inshallah.
I think there is a question.
Yes, go ahead, inshallah. Yes. Go ahead, inshallah. Saif, you're the one who is moderating on that side.
Yes, I'll be unmuting the people who are raising their hand.
Yeah.
Sure. Roshan, you can ask your question, please.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Ustaz. It was really a pleasure to see you after such a long time.
Alhamdulillah, Roshan. Welcome back.
Thank you. This course, is it going to, how you call this, are we going to get to know, to have insight, like in our heart? Like you mentioned, the light of the heart in the introduction. I was looking at that word, light of the heart. Is the light of the heart what we call firasa? Or is firasa something completely different?
Firasa is something different. I think I was not really referring to that. It was referring more to the just Noor in general. And inshallah, the text I will do, the Hikam of Ibn Ata'illah, if those who have read the text in Arabic, not the translations, might be more familiar with what I was referring to. His statements are very concise, they're packed with meaning, and in fact, for us to even get through the text, we'd have to do a separate course entirely on just the Hikam. So we'll go through a little bit on the aphorisms and do a bit of contemplation and ponderance on that. But yes, inshallah, the goal is to have this inner insight developed through that, because we're going straight into the wisdom that one of the great exemplars of our tradition, has said that this is, so that's the idea, inshallah. But to truly benefit from that, you will have to put in the work. You will have to, write it down by hand so you can know the word itself. You can see the word itself, the statement that he's giving. You can always go back to it, refer to it, read it back again. In fact, if you make it as neat and presentable as possible, it will be enjoyable for you to also read. I mean, I'll be reading from my own notes. I won't even be reading much from that. I'll just have it open to see if there are any variances. But I'll actually be teaching from my own notes and my own study of it. And that's what I've always been doing in all my classes. I always teach from my own writings. So to truly benefit from that, you'd have to do the work. Like I mentioned during the session, we have become a people who are now, we want the solution, but we don't want to put in the effort. We don't want to do the work. We want the solution. Fast solutions. Everybody has a fast solution. How do we fix it? How do we rectify it quickly? But we don't want to put in the work and the effort that is required to actually do the problem solving. And the root solving of the problem begins internally before it can be resolved externally. So inshallah, I'm hoping that with this text, we will have a more profound understanding of reality. Both this physical reality that we occupy and the overwhelming spiritual reality that is around us. Inshallah.
Mr. Roshan, would you like to add something, or should I move on to the next person? Okay, thank you. Ms. Yasmin Riaz, you may speak now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me?
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Yes, I can hear you.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I'm really excited for this course. But as I'm little new to these kind of terms, what you have used, and probably don't have these books, and we don't have that Arabic kind of comprehensive study. So maybe when you use Arabic terms and all these things, get a little bit slower with it. This is just my one suggestion. And the second thing is that I just wanted to ask that the narratives around us in the world right now is really, are we flowing in those terms? Like you mentioned that these are the short terms they are using, and they want a very quick solution for all the things. So does it mean like with all those studies and classes we took, and all the Quran classes and the Hadith and the fiqh and all these things, like we still unable to find out like where we are heading to, what should be our motive, and how we gonna work on ourselves? So does it mean that narratives around us in the world they have made for us, so we can jump from one to another, and that's how we just satisfy our own self? Oh, okay, I'm part of it. Okay, I did this, and okay, I'm going for it. So, but it is not the thing that it quench our thirst. That what we are doing for the deen. So what I'm looking for in this specific class, that inshallah we will be working on ourselves and our inner self and in our heart. So I don't know if I was able to explain my question to you. So if you can kindly just give me the answer, whatever you could understand from me. Jazakallah khair.
Inshallah. I think I understood what you were trying to ask. First of all, the world that we are living in now is completely different than the world that our predecessors, our forefathers lived in. Several dynamics take place that determine this. There's an axiom that the dominant language, or the language that is used, defines the thoughts of a people, and then the thoughts of a people are then projected onto a worldview, meaning how we view reality, and then how we view reality, or how we have the worldview, will determine how we cultivate our reality, and then that will then determine the civilization that we are going to be in. So when you look at now the civilization that we are in, and you do a backtrack, you go backtrack to the source language that is attributed. And that source language has not come from a divine source. That source language has come from a worldly source. It's an agenda that wants to establish a new worldly order, novus ordo seclorum, a secular world order. And so this is the kind of thing that we have been brought up in. For several generations now, we've gone through the schooling, and we've had this certain view of the world that, life is about getting a good job, and life is about getting, establishing yourself in a community in a certain way, a certain standard, a certain everything. To better understand something like this, it is necessary to separate your mental state from the thing that you're trying to understand. It's like ingredients in a bowl of soup. Soup is being made on the stove, the fire, everything is being boiling and everything. The ingredients cannot make sense of what they are and what's going on around them. But the one who is external outside knows what's going on, knows that, the salt is dissolving in the water and the spices are doing this and this is can make sense of what it is. This is the intelligence. We talked about this in the last course. We talked about agent intellection and then active intelligence. The intelligence that separates, adnahu taraka dunya, separates from the worldly aspect of things, to see things in a more objective way, is when you start beginning to see that, oh, okay, you know what, what is being presented from the West as a way of life, though it may be examined in terms of Sharia or fiqh and the halal haram portion can be distinguished, is not actually the way of life that the Quran tells us to live, or the way of life that the Prophet wanted us to live. You see? So once you start understanding that, then you start seeing, okay, which way is the world actually headed towards? Another important factor is not to examine the short term. Has anyone ever done day trading or forex trading? I'm pretty sure many people have done that. You've got something called scalping, okay? Scalping is where they only look at the momentary, you know, the candle bar goes in bull, they sell quickly, and then when it goes, they buy, and then you see they're doing this in short term. In the short term graph, you see this up and down, it's all chaotic, it's all crazy. When you expand the graphs, that's when you start seeing that there's a trend on a weekly basis, there's a trend on a monthly basis, there's a trend on a yearly, on a 10-year period. There's a certain trend that you can only see when you zoom out, not when you're looking at a particular. So one might look at the last events of the last 12 weeks and draw a conclusion. That conclusion will be false if it's based only on what's happened in the last 12 weeks. But when pulls out and looks at the last 70 years, a certain conclusion can be seen because it's a trend that is noticeable. Then when one looks at the last 1,000 years, beginning from the Crusades, now a different picture starts materializing. It's important to look at the bigger picture. And this is what we'll study this inshallah in logic as well. Seeing the forest for the trees, before you try to figure out the particular tree, understanding the whole forest as a whole is more important. So we'll study all that. And the idea behind the science of logic, as we said, is to increase comprehension of reality and the power of comprehension itself, to enable you to have a bigger expansive understanding of reality. So that to the question that you asked now, how do we understand which direction, if I understood your question correctly, how do we understand which direction we are headed towards? And then what is expected of you as an individual? What is expected of you, of all of us as an ummah? What position are we supposed to take? It's a very complex matter that cannot be given in one short session or one quick question like this. But this is what the course has been geared towards, inshallah. It is on one side is to build on the psychology course we did previously. So the idea is to enable us to have to cultivate this psychological soundness by empowering the intellect. And then on the other side, by empowering the intellect, inshallah, as you then apply it, as you then apply the knowledge that you have learned through practice, until it becomes an intuitive thing that you don't actually have to figure out the terms. You don't have to fixate on the terms. You have an intuitive understanding of it. Then making sense of things becomes much more easier. So when you see a news headline or you see whatever is taking place, you can quickly figure out what's happening just from that. You don't need to get into the semantics of it. Insofar as the terms are concerned, yes, I understand that many people also, they don't have a proficiency in Arabic and the terms may get confusing. Inshallah, I am going to explain each and every term that is used. So we'll be doing the Arabic and we'll be doing the English and translation and explanation of it as well. But what I will also do is I will compile a list of the technical terms that are used in the science of logic. I'll compile that for everyone, inshallah, and I'll send it over to you guys so that you know what the terms are. And when you make your flowcharts based on the text as you're studying them, the terms will become more and more easier to grasp. They're not difficult, actually, they're very easy. In fact, if you are of Urdu speaking origin, Persian speaking, Turkic speaking, and Arabic speaking, this will be like a breeze for you. The terms are the same terms. So when I'm talking about jins, when I'm talking about fasl, when I'm talking about firaq, in Arabic you've got firaq, in Urdu you've got farq. So, these terms will be the same terms. It's just the pronunciation is different. So you'll get it, inshallah, you'll get it. In the initial, it might seem like it's overwhelming. So we'll take it slow and steady. We'll take it piece by piece, inshallah.
Thank you. Ziba, you may ask your question now.
Start, I was just wondering, could you explain the word other, because I'm not sure, I didn't get that. I think you said something like other, writing is the other of literature or something.
Yes, in the Arabic sciences, there are many sciences in the Arabic language. One of those sciences is literature. And literature is, in our tradition, is the adab of language. So adab is discipline, and that's the discipline of the language, the literature. So when you look at people who are, I mean, if you look at literature, for example, you know, there's a certain format, there is a certain etiquette in which literature is compiled. All those are part of the adab of it. And that's the discipline of your own self in terms of studying. If you're the kind of person who just picks up random pieces of paper and writes over here and maybe quick note over there, then that's not adab in the study. If you look at our tradition, you look at the manuscripts. Has anyone ever been to the Topkapi Museum in Istanbul, or the Museum of Islamic Sciences and Technology? If you've ever been there, they have an entire section where they've got manuscripts of scholars, and they're different scholars, going all the way back to the early compilations. And you look at these manuscripts, and they're incredible. They're beautiful. They've got, you know, patterns, and the handwriting. I mean, these are not people who are dealing with typing. You know, the handwriting is meticulous. It's just well composed, well defined. The aesthetics are beautiful. You know, this was the adab of it, and that's the kind of adab you want to cultivate from the onset. You want to, when you're doing your study, you want to put down your notes. You want to put them down neat and tidy. You want to organize them. You want to format them. It's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay for that. That's fine. You can always rectify that. But you want to cultivate this discipline, because what this discipline does is it harmonizes the motion of your body, the extension, which is your limbs, with the processing of your brain, because your brain is processing information. And your intellect is reliant on the brain's power of processing. It is the only inroad of information that the intellect has. So rather than the intellect jumping ahead or lagging behind, you want it to move harmonious with the motion of time, which is the motion with which your hand will move, and your brain will coordinate with that, as well as your senses. So you're actually completely immersed in what you're doing. If you have just a printout, number one, you won't really value that printout. But I guarantee you, when you write down that entire text, you will guard that book with your life. Because that's what I do. I guard my books with my life. Because you've made an effort, you've put in the time, you've put in the effort. You see, it has got an intrinsic value now to you, as compared to you just getting a PDF and printing it out. That's an extrinsic value. It's just the cost of ink and paper. It's not that valuable to you. But if you wrote it by hand, that's more valuable to you. And you will treasure that. And this is going to cultivate an inner sense of longing and belonging within you, to recognize the intrinsic value of things, as opposed to something that has just got a monetary note to it. Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you, teacher. There is a written question from Mr. Azharuddin. I will read the question out loud. I am struggling with ruh lately. I feel the restlessness within my heart and find it increasingly difficult as time progresses to find the strength to continue on. I respect your guidance, and if you wish to message me directly, you are more than welcome.
Please send me an email, and to explain like what it is that you're dealing with or going through. I will not be able to explain on this right now. It will take too long. But if you are able to also take the time and go through the course that we did, the videos are there on YouTube. go through the course that we did previously. That will also give you a bit of an understanding of what it entails. But send me an email, and then maybe I'll be able to respond better once I understand exactly what it is that you're going through, inshallah.
Ilham, I hope I am pronouncing your name right.
Yes, Al-Laham, that's my name. Thank you very much for this amazing course. Ustad, I was wondering if regarding the previous courses, should we finish those first, or is it okay to proceed with this one directly? I am almost done with the first one, Surah Al-Kahf, but I was wondering if I should be finishing the other one as well.
You can do both simultaneously. It would be good if you have done that previous course, because that was more comprehensive. We spoke about the aql and how the aql works and how the inner psychology works. And we spoke about a lot of things in that course as well. This is going now more into the specifics of the intellect itself. In the previous course, we spoke about the intellect, the shahwa, the ghadab. We'll be mentioning those again and again. So it would be good if you can, try and catch up with those as well. So you're not lost when we are mentioning these things. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Inshallah. You can find the recordings of the previous courses on the Institute official YouTube channel, and you can also find them on my YouTube page as well. So they've been uploaded on both. So you can choose whichever works for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Thank you. Zoom user, you may ask your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Teacher, I wanted to ask a question that you said about that, what sciences did Muhammad Iqbal and Malcolm X, Martin Luther King master?
Or what sciences did they master? I'm not going to be able to give you very specifics on that, but if you do read about Malcolm X, you'll be able to know. Muhammad Iqbal he studied philosophy, he studied theology, I believe he studied law, I'm not sure. He definitely studied the language arts. He was very proficient in poetry, he was very proficient in rhetoric, and these are things that you can see from his writings. He definitely studied logic, and you can't study philosophy without logic. Logic is a foundational science. In fact, there are numerous number of sciences that you can't study unless you study logic. We'll cover that next week, inshallah, when we do the 10 principles, Mabadi Ashra. We'll talk about the importance of logic itself, and we'll look at some of the statements by scholars regarding logic. So they definitely studied logic. I know Malcolm X studied logic and rhetoric. So these are sciences that, the modern world has abandoned, whereas the pre-modern world really emphasized on these. And it was a model that was previously used by the Greeks. They had the quadrivium and then they had the trivium. So the trivium were the qualitative sciences, and then the quadrivium were the quantitative sciences. In the trivium, you had language, you had grammar, and you had rhetoric. Language included logic. So you had logic, essentially logic, grammar, and rhetoric. Those were qualitative. And then in the quadrivium, you had the quantitative, and those dealt with number. So you had arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So arithmetic was number itself, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what number itself is, and then its incrementals and its decreases and its multiples and its divisibles and all those things. And then so that was the arithmetic, and then you had geometry, which was number in space. So dimensions, for example, right? Like this is a rectangle. It's got 90-degree angles. This side is longer than this side. That's number in space. And then you had music, which was number in time, because music is precise to the beats per minute, or BPM. right? So the composition of music has to flow with time, and that's a different discussion now. You see how like what music has become now is just, why is it so rubbish, is because it doesn't actually adhere to the meters of time, and is meant to excite the soul more than to soothe the soul, and to excite it in a negative sense rather than a positive sense. Anyway, but that was number in time. And then you had astronomy, which was number in time and space. So those were the 4 quantitative sciences, and then all sciences basically fell in those categories. So philosophy fell in this category of the trivium. After you mastered language and the language arts, you were now able to have this discourse, because you've got logic and then you've got dialectic. So in our tradition, you had mantiq, and then you had adab al-bahath wal-munadara. Mantiq is logic, which looks at the way language itself functions and how we make sense of things, propositions, syllogisms, arguments. And then adab al-bahath wal-munadara is the discipline of research and presentation or argumentation. How do you debate, right? And then you had like physics and chemistry fell on this side, your mathematics fell on this side. So what's transpired with the modern world is they've removed the qualitative completely, and they only teach the qualitative insofar as its fulfillment towards the quantitative. So you only learn language so that you can study physics, biochemistry, and be an engineer, doctor, whatever. They don't teach you language so that you can write rich poetry or think artistically or argue philosophically. They don't teach you for that. They remove the quality completely from that. And that's one of the reasons why when you look at modern society, a breakdown of communication is what cripples civilization. And if you look at how people actually converse, Twitter is a clear example of, and Facebook and the kind of comments and stuff and the way people talk. It's just, you can't have a conversation, an intellectual conversation with anyone. Anyway, I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. There is one last question from Shakila Riaz. It's a written question. I will read it out loud for you. The question is, as I understood, we would be having 1 hour session per lesson. So how would we divide the logic text and matan al-hikam?
Yeah. So inshallah inshallah what I will do is I will start with the hikam. I will do a few passages. Many of the passages are, many of the hikam are like following each other. They're part of the same theme. So I'm going to do that in different sections. Sometimes it will be 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 7, like that. And then once we finish that short bit, then we'll move on to the study of logic, and we'll progress step by step, inshallah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is another question. Mohammed Nuruddin, you may ask the question now. Mr. Mohammed Nuruddin, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question? All right, then I guess sir, that's it.
Yeah,
These are all the
okay.
questions.
Okay, khairan, inshallah. I know there's not much to discuss right now. There was not much in
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, brother. I just want to understand when you say you use art literature less adab, which kind of art literature are you referring?
It's literature in general, all literature, whether it's matan or it's sharh or it is fictional, non-fictional, because there's fictional literature in our tradition as well. There's poetry that is involved in there. Basically anything to do with letters, what you would call a man of letters, is somebody who delves into literature. And so this is literature, like this sharh that has been written here on the Isa Guji. This is part of our literature, right? And there is a certain way that it is to be studied. There's a certain modus that is a discipline that is applied to it. If anyone has ever studied in some of the madrasas, like in Mauritania or Morocco or even in Syria, they, like, you have to, I know this from some of my teachers, because this is what my teachers made me do, is you have to write it by hand. You have to write the entire text by hand, and that becomes your personal copy. So, you don't just go to a bookstore and buy one. You write the text that your teacher has, you copy his text down, and then that becomes your own personal copy. And then that's what you study. And that's why every text that I've studied, I have my own written version of it. Though I have a physical book, I have my own written version of it. So that's the adab of it. Now, the word adab in itself, in its root sense, it's a very broad word, but it means discipline. Now, discipline has got many aspects applied to it. It's not just punishment for crime, like you did something wrong and now you need to, pay the price for it. But the discipline itself, like disciplining your sleep time, or disciplining your table manners, or disciplining how you sit, all that is part of adab. Akhlaq is part of adab. Akhlaq is just one small component of adab, speaking politely, kindness, please, thank you, excuse me, whatnot. Adab is much more broad. And so, studying has got its own adab, how you sit, how you present yourself. Like for me, the thing that I do when I sit down to study is I first of all make sure that I am in wudu. I don't like to sit and study whatever it might be, even if it is not an Islamic study that I'm doing. I make sure that I'm in wudu. Because at any point in time while I'm studying, I know I'm going to reference the Quran, I'm going to reference a hadith, I'm going to look up a tafsir, I'm going to do all these things. So I make sure I'm in wudu. I make sure that my books, for example, are organized in a certain way whereby the Quran is at the top shelf, followed by tafsir, then followed by hadith, then followed by books of usul, then fiqh, and then language, and then other books come, at the way bottom of the shelf. This is part of the adab. I make sure that I'm using the kind of materials that are, they have got some value, an intrinsic value to them. So I only write using fountain pens. I don't use biro and ballpoint and all these other things. I only write using fountain pens. And I have got, my own inks, and I mix my own inks. And even that, I would recommend everyone to do that. Definitely, don't use ballpoints and all these things. These are cheap instruments. Use something that's a bit more sophisticated, that also gives you a sense of sophistication in what you're doing. Don't cheapen the action that you're doing. That's one of the aphorisms. We'll look at that, inshallah. Don't lower the value of the action that you're performing. Give it a bit more beautification to it. So part of the adab of writing also is the actual ceremony of preparing the writing materials. So, the cleaning the pen and removing debris from it, and then, inking it and cleaning everything around you and prepping everything is part of the adab of writing. So this part, even though it may take you a long time, yes, you might be able to write 1,000 words in 1 hour if you just did like this and like that. And whereas doing all these other things, you only wrote like 200 words. It's fine. You're not going anywhere. The world's not ending tomorrow. You don't know when your time is going to pass. You don't need to write everything right now and finish it right now. Even if you only write an ayah and it takes you a whole hour just because you had to prep everything, that prepping is part of your sense of discipline. Because while you're doing that prepping and all these other things, your mind is getting entrenched into the action that you're going to perform. You see, this is who we are. We Muslims, we don't just do things functionally. Doing things functionally is something that the modern world does. The modern West, you see, they just build things, it's functional, or 4 walls. You see, okay, it's a table and a chair, it's enough. They do things functionally. We don't do things like that. We're different. We do things with ihsan. We want to beautify things. See, that's why we've got all this. Like, we went through a couple of hours just, setting up everything. I could have done a functional thing and just put a camera in front of me, behind a white wall. Why go through all this stuff? because this is who we are. We're Muslims. We want to do things in a sophisticated way. We want to beautify it. That part of that beauty also enables an inner beauty to flourish. That's the adab.
I agree completely.
That is the
I
adab
agree
now.
completely.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair, barakallah feek.
No.
Thank you, teacher. I think there are no more questions left.
Okay, tamam, inshallah. Let's end here then. سبحانك وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, jazakumullah khairan. Inshallah, we'll see everyone in the next session next week, inshallah. Jazakallah.